Welcome to Click AI Radio, where you'll learn the secrets to transforming your small to medium business. Grant has been helping businesses transform using technology for over 30 years. Advanced technologies like artificial intelligence have been available only to large companies and advanced technical teams. Grant will discuss how you can use to leverage AI and other technologies to grow your small to medium business. As a gift, Grant is offering his ebook, AI for Sales Growth, at clickairadio.com. Now, here's your host and biz tech geek, Grant Larson.
Okay, hey, this is Grant. Thank you for joining another episode of Click AI Radio. All right, so today it's AI in your chips, your Pics, and your clicks, how that's going to save your business. So recently I was looking at an interview. This was between the CEO of Micron Technology and Adobe, the CEO of Adobe. And they were talking about how both of those companies were using AI. Now, Micron develops computer chips, all right? So the things that make your phones and your computers and other things run. So in fact, I think they're the only computer chip manufacturer in the United States, actually. Most are in Asia. All right, so they were talking about the use of AI, and the Micron team, whom I actually have some friends over there, but the Micron team is using AI that they talked about to detect anomalies and flaws in computer chip design, all right? So I'm not talking about Pringles or Doritos or anything like that. What they do is they take pictures of these chips while they're being manufactured, and then they've trained their AI to recognize flaws, right? And of course, the earlier that the flaws are caught in the process, then the less money it takes to correct those, right? To fix those. So I was thinking about that, and I was, could I use a similar approach in my business information? So if I'm running a small to medium business, then the parallel would be if I analyzed my business information sooner rather than later, then it too has the potential of saving me tons of money, right? It allows me to stop doing the things that I shouldn't be doing, as well as to then emphasize those things that I should be doing. So I think there's money to be made with this pattern in chips, right? Meaning the pattern of applying it to your business information sooner rather than later. All right, let's talk about Pics. Now, in this Micron example, they're using pictures and images of pictures, of course, to analyze for these defects. But what about pictures themselves? So we all have these cell phones, right? And of course, as you probably know, there's more and more AI-enabled apps for your camera on your phones. Android's got a ton of them, and Apple's got some as well. In fact, there's this report on dignited.com that talks about some of the more recent AI camera apps that are out there. One of the things that's interesting about these is that once you point your camera in the right direction, the AI app takes over and automatically tweaks the settings behind the scenes for you. So, even if you're not a camera nerd, it gets the right aperture settings, right? It puts in takes into consideration the light and where it is and does the adjustments for you. So it also does a couple other things, right? It will try to determine what the type of the scene is that it's looking at. So adjusting light, it'll do dynamic exposure, color adjustments, even slapping in some cool effects as well. It's kind of interesting. So one of the things that I learned recently, I was talking to some successful business owners and some entrepreneurs, and they shared that one of the key things that they did to grow their business was they documented their journey. And they did it using pictures. In fact, they say document your ascent. And so the idea is that they take pictures along the way while they're building their business and they're growing their business. And they're taking pictures of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Things that are going well, things that are not going well also. It turns out that those pictures later became real valuable assets to their organization. right? It gave them a chance to look back, understand the things that worked well, things that didn't, wrap the stories around those, and ultimately those stories with those pictures identified patterns that later other companies, other business owners, entrepreneurs are actually willing to pay for. So one of the things that you can do with your pics is document the journey of your business and let these AI apps help you identify patterns and help you to get the best pictures along the way. So one of the things I want to talk about here is what's one of the best ways to document your journey with your business. And part of that answer is, of course, not only with these pics that I'm talking about, but it's also with your business data. There's some obviously companies that are selling things online, right? Some call it e-commerce, whatever it might be. But any sort of selling online, you're in a great position to leverage AI because you're capturing a lot of history and a lot of data along the way. So there's a recent research article I was looking at from usmsystems.com. They were talking about some success stories of AI in the e-commerce industry. So that's companies that are selling retail online. And it was noted that back in 2014, so where are we? Was that 6 years ago? That the online sales in terms of billions of dollars, now these are US numbers, so that was $1.3 billion, right? That's 6 years ago. In 2020, it's estimated to be around 4.1 billion. Holy smokes. All right, so about 4 times as much. By the end of 2021, it'll be around 4.8 billion. That's huge growth, okay? That's about a 30% growth. In fact, as per some research reports, it's estimated that AI is going to start using, if I'm reading the report right, about 60% of e-commerce will be using AI. Now, if you're doing some e-commerce, meaning if you're selling anything online and you're not leveraging AI, that's obviously something that you really need to look seriously at. There was a study by PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. They identified that the AI usage will increase the global GDP by 14% by the year 2013. I've mentioned that report before. That's huge, right? The real trick is, are you leveraging AI for your business? Now, let's take a look at some examples here. This is from one particular research article from USM Systems. Ready? Back in 2006, Burberry Company adopted AI. Now, when I think back about that, I think earlier in my career, the use of AI was not huge. Of course, my career started way before 2006, but in any event, still, 2006, leveraging AI, that was for the select few for sure. All right. Now, in any event, they started back then. Burberry did, right, of all companies, and they were an early adopter of this. And that they've estimated that by 2025, that about 20% of their luxury sales are expected to take place online. Now, what's interesting about this is that, they go after a luxury clientele, which typically is focusing on a face-to-face sort of sales experience. But for them to say, hey, in the next few years, we expect 20% of our revenue to actually come from that. That's a huge statement. And they're leveraging AI to help them do that. McKinsey, who's a really powerful research organization, said that about 80% of luxury sales are influenced by online e-commerce stores, which is kind of interesting. So in other words, just the fact that you're online and you're selling things online, that actually influences luxury sales. So that's a huge impact. Turns out Burberry, if I can say it, has been using RFID tags. I don't know if you know what those are. Most do. They're using it to track and collect data about how customers interact in their stores. And then they collect that data of both how they're interacting, customer activity online, as well as past orders. And then they do a bunch of sales analytics with AI. If you're doing anything online, did I already say this? Start applying some AI, right? Even Burberry started figuring that out a long time ago. Here's another one, Stitch Fit Stitch Fix. Wow, say that 5 times fast. So they again use AI to streamline both their logistics and their operations. Again, they're doing this with their online business, but they use it ultimately to figure out what's the right place for locations of a warehouse and, where it's closest to consumers' locations and things like that. All right, let's look at another one that we all know, Starbucks. They introduced a virtual assistant to help customers order coffee online, right? And you can do it through either voice or text. There's some AI in there to do that, but they end up connecting it to then your activities when you're actually at the store itself. So when you enter the store, the barista can then retrieve that information and place an order that ultimately lines up with your previous purchase history. So they've got a whole bunch of capabilities now with Alexa, right? So they're listening to that. In the end, they're collecting data with every time you touch their company. And then they use that data and AI to then figure out, right, what's the right way to approach this particular customer. Let me mention one more. So this is Domino's Pizza, and of course they've been selling about 55% or more of their pizza online now, right? Which is kind of huge for a pizza group, right? When you think about that. Now, what they do is they take the data that's been collected and they derive a whole bunch of insights on who's the person in that household that tends to buy the most, and what is it, what are the ingredients that they put on the recipe, on the pizza and so forth. It also helps them to generate unique coupons for that person right at the moment that it's interacting with you. Anyway, tons of AI involved in that. The common thread is at every touch point that you have, either in terms of preparing to talk with your customer or in interacting with your customer, meaning think about going from the ads all the way through to the customer interacting with you online, and then even afterwards in support mode, you capture lots of data. That data then translates into a mountain load of business information that AI can harvest from. So, therefore what? What does this mean to your small to medium business? Well, number one, be diligent about leveraging AI to expose the good and, of course, the not so good. And do it early in the process, kind of like what Micron does, right? Early in their quote-unquote manufacturing process. So think about it early in your business processes. Capture as much as you can and get started evaluating your data using AI. Number two, document your journey as a business. AI camera detection will actually help you with this journey. It actually turns out to be a real moneymaker for you too in the future. And then number three, of course, like the online e-commerce companies that I mentioned, start analyzing your business information now. Be intentional about your AI strategy. Down the road, you'll start applying multiple AI techniques over and over again, right? I mean, when you started shopping at Domino's Pizza 10, 15, whatever, 20 years ago, no AI was involved at that point, right? Now, today, they use it in a ton of scenarios, and you keep thinking, oh, this is just about pizza. It's about business information to help serve the customer. All right. Thanks for joining, and until next time, get started on your AI journey.
Thank you for joining Grant on Click AI Radio. Don't forget to subscribe and leave feedback. And remember to download your free ebook. Visit clickairadio.com now.